Joining this conversation is the HOD for the Eastern Cape COGTA Department, Mr. Vuyo Mbokothi, where we'll be talking about very crucial conversations around disaster risk reduction in the Eastern Cape. Thank you so much, HOD, for joining us. We appreciate your presence in this podcast. And just looking at that today, various stakeholders are here, people from academia, disaster management experts are here to talk about disaster risk reduction. What can you say is the significance of such a platform for the Eastern Cape, looking at how we've had our own experience with floods?
It is common knowledge that the Eastern Cape is a disaster-prone province. We've had quite a few of these disasters across the length and breadth of the Eastern Cape, starting from the eastern part of the province to the western part of the province. Now today is this month in particular, on the 13th of October is a day marked by the International United Nations body for the recognition and acknowledgement of the international risk reduction across the world. In South Africa and in the Eastern Cape in particular today, and this week we are actually marking that day, but invited stakeholders from the business, research institutions, municipalities across the board. We've actually asked the business to come in as well. You may have seen that we have quite a few of these that are in attendance as well here. The overall intention is to begin to build awareness on the disaster risk reduction and to work on the mitigation plans and work on adaptation plans and to ensure that everybody else understands the importance of avoiding, where possible, disasters, whether it is flood, whether it is drought, whether it is veld fires. So we're trying to invest much in terms of the various aspects of disasters in the Eastern Cape, and we cannot do so by mobilizing communities and mobilizing our stakeholders to partner with us. It is our view that disaster risk reduction is everybody's business. It can't be COGTA or government's responsibility solely. It is all of us must actually play a role to begin to ensure that we actually ensure that there is a reduction of these kind of disasters and mitigate against the possibility of these disasters. And the seminar here has invited municipal planners, practitioners as well, because we think that this thing goes back to how we plan our settlements, how we plan our municipalities, how people actually build their houses as well, how our structures are constructed and where they are constructed. And the overall intention of having everybody else in this meeting is to ensure that when we merge here, there is a common understanding in terms of how we can actually avoid these kind of disasters. Now, Gqeberha in particular has had disasters. Last year, would recall that in June, we had flood disasters here that ravaged and destroyed Kariega and the most part of Gqeberha area. In October, with the same disasters that struck this area as well. In June this year, we had disasters in Mthatha that killed more than 100 individuals, our citizens that perished in that part of the world. And we are foreseeing that may be repeated in the next number of years, primarily because of climate change. So there's a number of things that already globally are beginning to impact on our plans. So we must be ready for that. So we are, as a department, investing heavily in terms of the infrastructure, the plans, personnel, even increasing awareness among students as well. You may have seen in the build-up sessions as well across the province that school children are being mobilized, communities, traditional leaders are being mobilized as well. And our partners here, which is Old Mutual, which is Santam, who are part of this session as well, have actually been able to assist us in terms of going out to the communities, mobilizing them, sensitizing them, and making them understand exactly the do's and don'ts that got disasters. In the Eastern Cape, we're buying in a great level of machinery and equipment. We're buying speedboats, we're buying rubber floating boats as well. We yesterday made available veld fire equipment to two districts, which is Chris Hani as well as Jogabi, as an attempt to begin to assist them to able to mitigate and deal with veld fires as and when they occur. So that's the intention in relation to why we're here, and we think that our researchers and academia here will be able to produce some kind of guide, much more research work in terms of what we can do going forward.
And as you say that this seminar is much more focused on funding resilience and not disasters, just to move away from disaster response, but ensuring that our communities are much more prepared for that. And looking at the previous disasters that have happened here in the Eastern Cape, what lessons can be taken from such disasters to ensure that we don't go back there?
We have learned quite a few lessons in the past number of years. Let me zoom into what we picked up just in Mthatha in June this year. we observed that most of the deaths that we suffered or incurred in that part of the world had to do more with the settlement patterns, land invasion, poor town planning, persons who built on the floodplains. Most of those that perished along the rivers in Mthatha were persons that should not in any way have built those areas in any way. So they went ahead to build in areas where they were forbidden, that the town planning schemes of municipalities actually prohibited them for them to build. So that's the first thing. So the massive land invasion we incurred, we experienced, actually contributed a great deal in terms of the deaths we have. In Gqeberha, for instance, one thing that we picked up was poor drainage system management. Now, we did say when we had the first disaster in June last year in October that it would be advisable for the municipality to invest much more in clearing of the water drainage system. Because once you have the drainage system functional and able to absorb and distribute water to the various areas out of the roads and streets that were flooded, you wouldn't have this kind of damage to infrastructure in any way. That's the second thing. The second thing is about the readiness to begin to evacuate individuals. Now, we don't have that kind of system in the country where there is an announced disaster, where there's level 6 or level 5 that is announced, that people can be able to evacuate to higher planes as well. So we need to have systems that are going to have alarm bells, as we have them in Brazil, for instance. There is an institutionalized method when there's going to be disasters. Persons or communities get alerted through a sound or a bell that rings as and when there's going to be disasters. So we don't have those kind of things in the country. We must actually have that and invest in those matters. So there's quite a few lessons that I've learned that starts from town planning, our land invasion, land use management issues, our settlement patterns, our overall system around even the maintenance of infrastructure as well, and how we build our own infrastructure as well, because it must be resilient to disasters. Now, most of the disaster-prone countries have designed the structures in a manner that when they are disasters, they are resilient, they can actually withstand this kind of disasters.